Let's bring in foreign correspondent Maggie Rulli in Ukraine, along with ABC's Alex Prochet in Washington for more. Maggie, Putin claims Russia does not intend to occupy Ukraine. How does that track with what you're seeing and hearing there?
Well, it's interesting, Diane. I think most people we speak with here on the ground would question that, saying they've seen what has been happening in these cities. They've also seen what's happened historically. I mean, Diane, I'm blown away by the number of people we've met here in Lviv that have told me this is not the first time they've had to flee their homes because of the Russians. I mean, just recently we met a 13-year-old boy who in his very short life said he's already had to flee his home twice because of Russia. Once in 2014 when they invaded the eastern Crimea. Now again just a few days ago. So, imagine that when you're thinking about the historical implications. They've been down this road before. You can imagine why many Ukrainians are distrustful, not only of this claim, but of so much of what Russia has to say. Now, we'll see what happens. We know these negotiations are ongoing. Both sides have said they're cautiously optimistic. Diplomacy seems to be potentially in the future. But, Dan, I think it's tough for a lot of people here on the ground to wrap their minds around.
And Alex, Putin says that the U.S. and its allies are trying to blame their own economic difficulties on Russia. How does that square, and how is that being received in Washington?
Well, it would point to some of the new polling that ABC News has done, a new poll out this week showing that it's almost split 50-50 with folks approving of the way President Biden has handled the situation in Ukraine. But also, I mean, you look at some of the sanctions, especially against Russian gas and oil, nearly more than 75% in that capacity actually agreeing with the U.S. Going about this sanctions against Russian oil and gas. We knew there was bipartisan support for that. And look, I mean, that came with a knowledge that it would make it harder for Americans to fill up at the pump, that this would be something that the American citizens would have to shoulder. And that's also something that we heard from President Biden during his State of the Union address. And so I do think that there is an understanding that this response to what's happening in Ukraine isn't without sacrifice from the pocketbooks of Americans.
Maggie, Zelenskyy showed a graphic video today as he addressed Congress showing the devastation in Ukraine. That included images of dying children. How dire is the humanitarian crisis there right now?
Well, I think, Diane, showing that video, showing the emotion behind it, showed how dire the situation really is. I mean, those graphic images, it was tough to watch. You mentioned dying children. He also showed mass graves. I mean, I think a lot of people were shocked and surprised that those images were shown in Congress. But some may argue that it was also important that they were shown to drive home what people are dealing with here on the ground. Diane, it's one thing to hear these terms like indiscriminate shelling, civilian being targeted, but to see and feel it here on the ground, to see what it does to families that are fleeing, to see what it does for soldiers that are dying, for family members that are losing their sons and fathers in this war. I mean, that's a whole different battle. And it was so important, I think, for Zelenskyy to show people that in Congress, to show this dire situation that is only getting worse, as he said, unless someone steps in. Now, he pointed to America and to the West to do this, really tapping into the emotion behind all of it. And I think with that video, he did a pretty successful job.
Now, Alex, President Biden is expected to announce some new military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine within the hour. What do we expect to hear from him?
Well, Diane, I expect to hear details not just of this new humanitarian and military aid. We talked about this $13.6 billion omnibus bill that was signed yesterday, but also some of the spending that's already happened. We talk about our reporting that already $1.2 billion has been earmarked for Ukraine thus far. The administration today and also yesterday has been rolling out and reminding in releases just what they've given to the Ukrainians already over the last few years in terms of military support, whether they be these anti-tank, anti-aircraft weaponry, and also some of the money that's already been used towards helping the refugee crisis going on in the region. I expect him to reinforce that, to remind people of our continuous and future support of Ukraine.
All right, Maggie Rulli in Lviv, Ukraine, Alex Prochet in Washington. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.